nothing strange, nothing new, right? So, yeah, again, with that in mind, so it's up to people, right? And sometimes people like to eat fast food. Sometimes they want to eat pure one, right? They prefer to eat organic food. Have you like organic food instead of fast food, right? So it's your choice. Okay, so yeah. And this is devotion, and again, please remember this. That's the two traditions. So in contrast, in the East, monk. Oh, one more thing I want to mention before I forget. The reason why in the East for 1,000 years, monks and nuns are the main figures in the temple. You know why? You know why? And plus, in other traditions, like in Catholicism, right? The priests are central, right? Central figures, right? But I'm talking about Buddhism. You know why?
Why are the monks and nuns the thinkers?
No, the central figures.
Oh, central. Oh, okay.
Why?
Wisdom.
We take care of everything we do for performers. We lead the lay people. Right? And even now, if you visit in most of the Buddhist country, you will see the monks and nuns run the temples, not lay people. It's still rare. Even in Vietnam, it's still rare. Yes, sir. Why? Why?
I actually had a question, but I think that it's because of their enlightenment.
No. Even this country, in our Vietnamese Buddhist communities around the state, there's many temples run by the lay people. Most of them fail.
Oh, their vows, dedication, their vows, right?
Yeah, but why do they fail? You know why? You don't know.
No conviction.
Yes, and what happened? Because the mindset of the lay people is that you have to have a monk and nun to run the temple, not lay people.
Okay.
So a lot of problems whenever they run by themselves. But in the West is quite different, like Split Rock Center or the center. But I want to mention things before you finish this class. Why? Who know why? Why the monastics, that means monks and nuns are main figures in the past in temple. But why?
Because they've devoted their lives to it.
Yes, that's one, but not the important one. Why?
They're the teachers.
Yes, yeah, of course, they're the teacher.
Yeah,
but why?
What's the question?
Why are the monks and nuns the central focus of the temples? That's the same question.
For 1,000 years, why? Instead of lay people. Now they're in the West, right? You see, they run by themselves, right? But in the East, it's quite different. Even now, it's pure rare.
It's like an anchor, isn't it, to keep everybody together?
Yes, and but why?
Path.
Why is that?
Teachings of the Buddha.
Yeah, of course, here.
Because you're the monk, like you're.
I'm a monk, yes, but when I walk on the street, no one care, right? Who care, right? But I want to emphasize so that you can understand, even in Theravada, Mahayana, and even in Tibetan tradition too. Yes, you see that Buddha,
Nature.
Dharma, and Sangha. I think I touched this point before too, right? Buddha, right? Right? If they want to become Buddhist, they have to make the vows to follow Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Buddha, right? Dharma doesn't mean the Buddha teaching, right? Sangha is the monastic communities. See that? They are one of the what they call three refuges.
The three refuges, yeah.
Plus, the only thing I want to mention is that, and in the West, especially even at the Spirit Rock Center or the Zen Center, most of the time it's run by the lay people too. They call themselves Sangha. Of course, this is a Sangha. That means a community of people who come together to practice Buddha teachings. But in the East, Sangha is more geared toward the monastics, that's monks and nuns. Plus, when we wear the robe, when we make the vows to become Buddhists, monks and nuns, we take the goal is what they call liberation. Liberation out of samsara, out of the birth cycle. You understand that? So in the West, I want to explain for you to see. In the West, there's nonsense. Is that right? You don't need to get out of the birth cycle. Who cares?
Right, because a lot of people don't believe in reincarnation, so they don't believe they're trapped in that cycle.
Right?
So they don't need that part.
We don't need that part. And so
Right.
they can practice meditation to calm their mind, to be peaceful. That's all they need. So that's why they secularize part of Buddhism. You see that now? You see the root there? Right? So again, in the reason why the Buddha established the Sangha or the Buddhist monks and nuns communities is to work toward liberation, get out of the birth cycle, or to become Buddha, and to work on the Bodhisattva path and so forth. But now, no. You just need to do meditation to calm your mind. That's enough. Is that clear now? That's why there's difference. There's different approaches. You see that's clear now? Okay.
From the East and West.
Yeah. Because of course, in the Christian or Catholic traditions, the priest and the pastor lead the whole assembly, right? Lead the lay people, right? But sometimes again, let's say even in the past, the priest represent God. Is that right? Right?
The priest.
Yeah. What is that? The priest is the embodiment of God and so forth, right?
He speaks of God.
He speaks of God and so, or represent God or and so forth. But now they don't care much, right? So they want to have some kind of freedom. That's why now the trend, the movement of the trend now is more toward secular life than the spiritual life. Yes?
I think a lot of times in church life, they have a difficult time relating to life as of today, because a lot of times they're talking about life that happened centuries ago, and they can't find themselves an identifiable way in today's society. So that's a problem.
Plus, that's element of faith there, right?
Yes.
So because we want to talk about the times of Jesus Christ, the time that he did his missionary and so forth, right? So that they can have that kind of devotion to him, right? And in Buddhism, it's similar, like in the Pure Land tradition I told you, right? If they tie up this word, they get disciple the name so they can get out this word. That's all. So they don't live with the present moment. But inside meditation or mindfulness help us to anchor us down here, right here, without any faith, without any conviction. You understand now? Okay. So let us move on here. Okay. Number 4 actions is not here. Let me see here. Okay, let me show you this clip.
Boys have their hair removed at the start of a 5-day retreat. This gathering gives them a chance to learn about Buddhism's teachings and the life of a Buddhist monk. Many Chinese Americans go to the Xi-Lai Temple in Los Angeles. Miao Xi, the director of outreach, says American Buddhism is divided largely along ethnic lines.
That's why there's Chinese Buddhism, there's Tibetan Buddhism, there's Japanese Buddhism, and so on. So I think that right now we have some form of American Buddhism as well.
Kusala Bhikshu is an American-born clergyman. He says Buddhism has a long history in the United States.
And it now has dug its roots into the soil of America. So there are people myself born in Iowa, people who were born in America who are coming as a convert to Buddhism, some becoming ordained as Buddhist monks or nuns, and bringing those teachings to everyday Americans.
The Dalai Lama may be the world's best-known Buddhist. He enjoys wide respect among Americans. He has some well-known followers, including actor Richard Gere. There are Tibetan Buddhist centers around the United States. This one near Redding, California, is a teaching and spiritual center. Kusala Bhikshu says his center in Los Angeles brings together several Buddhist schools. He studied under a teacher from Sri Lanka. His center is in a Korean-American neighborhood and was opened by a monk from Vietnam. He says Buddhist teachings differ a little from one tradition to the next. At the Si Lai Temple, the central teaching is the same: a respect for the tradition, a desire to change because of the American experience, and a search for unity among people of all beliefs.
Every being is connected, as like we're connected to this world. So I think we should be working towards harmonizing with one another. Harmony and peace would be something that we should all work towards.
Buddhists say there is a bridge that links the many forms of American Buddhism. It is the American-born children who share a Buddhist faith and American culture. I'm Mario Ritter.
Okay, so you see that some depend upon the needs of each individual, right? Sometimes they don't want to have any kind of faith to do the meditation. Sometimes they like to believe something, to hang on something, to live with some spiritual guidance, like Buddha, Bodhisattva. So it depends on the needs of people. So in Buddhism, somehow it's variety of choices for people to go to practice. There's not one choice. Like you go to a supermarket, you go to library, there's all kind of books over there for you to pick up. If you study psychology, go to the profession of psychology. If you study in nursing, become a nurse, you go to the place section where they put the nurse books and information there. So this is kind of variety there. Okay, so let's see, number 5, Kevin, what do you have?
I didn't have number 5. I had the ethic, Buddhist, and that is number 5. My bad.
Which one do you have?
I had the ethic, Buddhist, in Viharian tradition.
Okay.
I thought it was number 6.
Oh no, you're number 6?
No, he's
No,
number
he's
5.
number 5.
I'm number
number
5.
five?
I thought it was number 6. I didn't have it pulled up.
No, yeah, you are number 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. What do you have
I had
there?
misread it and thought it was ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked about how the Baha'i tradition, it's a non-celibate tradition.
Oh, I see.
And I didn't think it
What?
that one little N makes a big difference.
Yeah, a bit different. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Mhm.
So I talked about how it is a non-celibate tradition, but there's also a rule that they're very stricter on the vows that they do take. With if you follow a monk that breaks the vows,
Mhm.
they believe that is just as bad as the monk who broke the vows, and that's a sure way into hell. And Yeah, that's all I really found on that, but kind of would have helped if I'd have read
That's
the.
okay. Wow. So yeah. It's in this one letter, right?
Yeah.
But different, huh? Let's see here. Anyway, so for this number 5, number 5, number 6, let me try to see. I think I show you some video clips about how they devout the time, let's say, Taben. This is one of the the famous temple, I think. Oh, this is one of the center in Bloomington.
My name is Patricia Ellis, and I'm the center manager. We have 4 retreat cottages, and they're built in the shape of a yurt, a Mongolian yurt. They've been on the property since 1999, and originally they were built just for people who were coming to the center for retreats, and we would use it for lodging. We also have some retreat rooms that people can use during retreat periods. And then over the years, as more people found out about our center here, they would call and ask if they could just, come and stay. So now the cottages and the retreat rooms are open for anyone to stay as long as they're available. We have organized retreats where we invite teachers to come in and offer a retreat or a workshop on some specific topic. Sometimes they're religious and sometimes they're not. So people come for those, and if they're coming from someplace other than Bloomington, then often they want to stay here while they're attending the workshop or the retreat. But people also come to do personal retreats, just kind of a respite from their busy life. Sometimes they just come to relax. It's a beautiful setting in the woods. It's pretty quiet back there, and you can just hear the sounds of nature usually. So people like to come just to relax and have a quiet time. Because the cottages were intended for retreats initially, there's no telephone back there, there's no television, and there's actually no Wi-Fi either. So when people come and use the cottages, they're really there to just relax and have a quiet time. Now we have people who maybe are coming from Chicago to visit children at IU. They'll come and stay for a couple of days, or people who are coming from for other events in Bloomington. We have 108 acres. Most of it's wooded. So in addition to the cottages, there's a walking trail around the grounds. It takes about an hour, and it's a beautiful hike through the woods and along the creek, and just a lot of people come from town even just to take a walk here. Everything that's offered here at the center is open to anyone. So we welcome visitors. You don't have to be connected with Buddhism to visit here or to participate in any of the programs. People who just want to come and check.
Okay. If you visit the band center here in Louisville on the Hoverland, Hoverland in San Matthew area, this is so colorful.
What's the name of that?
The band center on the Hoverland.
Hubbard's Lane?
Hubbard's Land in San Matthew area. It's very colorful. The monks use all kinds of bells, drums, and so forth. This is Tibetan tradition, most colorful nation doing Buddhism. Again, there's many people, they join to the Tibetan tradition probably because of Dalai Lama influence too. of course this requires a lot of devotion. They make a lot of vows. And so it depends on the needs of people. So sometimes they like to follow that path, or they like to do meditation. But now, you know, in most of Buddhist center, like the lady just introduced, of course you go to that center to have your personal retreat. You may attend some kind of teaching session, some kind of meditation, some kind of visualization, and of course you have to pay.
Very expensive.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been there. It depends on each center. And even nowadays, many Buddhist centers start to charge people. But in the East, what we call the temple door or the temple gates always open. You can come anytime. That means it's free of charge. But nowadays, if you visit, let's say, especially China, you visit any temple, you have to pay for the ticket. And because most of the temples are controlled by the government, they use the Buddhist site. This Wednesday we talk about that more. They use Buddhist site as a tourist place to attract tourists, and that is somehow is go against about Buddhist tradition. Most of the time, especially in Vietnam, most time you don't have to pay ticket when you go to the temple, because most of the time they have some kind of independence there. But here, some temples, some Buddhist temples, they start to follow the Western traditions. They do the fundraising and so forth, and they charge people a ticket and so forth, but not for my ticket center. I don't want to do that, so because I want to separate. If you're more religious person, you don't need to worry much about the money, whether you rich or poor. Doesn't matter. But nowadays in the West, even spiritual, I think they need to pay fee or what do you call the fee, membership fee and so forth. Because of course it's so resistant, right? So that they can run the center. Otherwise, how could they get money to pay? Because most of the time in the past, people donate their money to build the temple. That's why it's free for the public. You understand that? But now, they run the center and there's no donation. How could they run? They get the fee. They get to take care. Make sense now?
Yeah, it's probably worth it.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one, 7, please. Yeah. What do you have there? Oh, okay.
Still not supposed to go first, it's fine.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh no, I don't want to go first. It's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you say? What do you have there?
I have that Buddha states in his teaching that women are capable of becoming arhats, and there's no physical limitations to reaching enlightenment. But there is a story in the Pali Canon where Buddha was approached by a group of women who wanted to be ordained, and he had originally refused, and but then he did allow them to be ordained, but he gave them 8 extra rules for nuns to be. What I read was kind of submissive to monks. And it's believed, some people believe that the story was made up to fit sort of the social norms of the time. And then others believe that Buddha was kind of hesitant to allow women to become nuns because of the way society thought that women should be submissive, and he didn't want people to reject Buddhism based on that. And that women now in modern times that are practicing Theravada, some of them try to break away from the tradition, and they go off and pursue their own teachings.
That's great. What do you have?
I did a little bit of the back history on it too, but what I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure if this is true, but when Buddha made the 2 groups, the one for monks and one for nuns, I think in the 11th century, Sri Lanka was taken over by Mongols for a short amount of time. When they brought it back, they had gone and slaughtered. They killed all the monks and nuns and destroyed the monasteries, but they were able to reestablish the monks because they were able to find already ordained Theravada monks, but they never were able to reestablish the nuns because I think it takes 10 nuns to ordain a new one. So for the last millennium or so, there hasn't been any. And there's a group now in Sri Lanka, and I can't remember what they're called, but they've taken on the same duties as official nuns would have, but they're not considered official because they were never officially ordained by the original one. So does that mean that there's actually no official Theravada nuns?
I looked up that same thing.
Yeah.
You did, and it was called the Bhikkhuni order, and they're not acknowledged by the government. Like there's an order, and there's like over 100 nuns, but they're not ordained.
In Sri Lanka?
Yeah, and there's
I
also
think
one in Bangladesh too.
I think I was looking at a different one because they said something about like 3,000 or so are part of this group.
Okay,
They don't.
If we have time, we can watch a video short clip about this now. Anyway, during the Buddha times, it's not easy for him to accept lady into his Sangha, right? You know why? So that is what we call extraordinary revolution during those times. Because, even, I told you many times, so even in the West, right, the Catholic nun, they don't have much right like the priest, right? And even in the Christian tradition, right, we start Turkish from last century, 20th century. There's many some female pastor stood up and run the show, but not before. Is that right?
That's true.
So somehow, why? Why is that?
It's
Why?
because of social norms.
Social norm of what? In the past?
Gender roles, yeah.
Gender role. Men work out the field, work out the farms. Ladies stay back, watch it, do the children. It's norm, right? But now there's a difference. You see that? That's why more than 2,500 years, that's an extraordinary revolution for the Buddha to accept the lady into the Sangha. That's why he's so hasty at the first. But later on, many nuns, they achieve arhatship. They become holy nuns. That's why they, before they pass away, they wrote what called theories, Gatha. The Gatha. That explains about how they achieve enlightenment. So physically, male and female is different, but mentally, we same. We have the different body, but the same mental and spiritual inclination.
So actually, Buddha was way ahead of his time. If you compare it to other religions, I mean, that's true. There's a lot of churches still that a woman pastor, that's against everything,
Yeah, a woman is not allowed to own a church.
Yeah, and then now you can check, especially in Mahayana institution, many nunnery in the state. And like I told you, remember I showed you the big book about the famous Taiwanese nun? She's great nun in Taiwan. She's also famous. She has more than 10 million followers around the world. Of course, most of them are Chinese. They do the charitable work. So again, they have the same facades, they have the same authorities, they have the same privilege as monks. But of course, when they come together, they have, I think, yeah, of course, it's still because as a single one. But when they stand by themselves independently, they have all rights. You understand? Up to now, even in Ravashan or in Mahayana or especially Vajrayana tradition, right? Okay, let's just cover all the things first. Let's see, Nick and is they not here? Okay. Let me show you this one here so you can see.
Sacred Feminine, the Divine Mother's energy of unconditional love and compassion, I think is so important for people nowadays, because if we can open to receive that, there's a sense of feeling that we're okay just as we are, that we're really, truly okay as we are.
run by the lay people, most of them fail.
Oh, their vows, dedication, their vows, right?
Yeah, but why do they fail? You know why? You don't know.
No conviction.
Yes, and what happened? Because the
Attachments.
mindset of the lay people is that you have to have a monk and nun to run the temple, not lay people.
Okay.
So a lot of problems whenever they run by themselves. But the West is quite different, like Split Rock Center or the center. And but I want to mention things before you finish this class. Why? Who know why? Why the monastics? That means monks now are main figures in the past in temple. But how's why?
Because they've devoted their lives to it.
Yes, that's one, but not the important one. Why?
They're the teachers?
Yes. This nothing strange, nothing new. Right? So, yeah, again, with that in mind, so it's up to people, right? And sometimes people like to eat fast food. Sometimes they want to eat pure one. Right? They prefer to eat organic food. Have you like organic food instead of fast food? Right? Simply your choice. Okay, so and this is devotion, and again, please remember this. That's the two traditions. So in contrast, in the East, monk. Oh, one more thing I want to mention before I forget. The reason why in the East for 1,000 years, monks and nuns are the main figures in the temple. You know why? You know why? And plus, in other traditions, like in Catholicism, right? The priests are central, right? Central figures, right? But I'm talking about Buddhism. You know why?
Why are the monks and nuns the thinkers?
No, the central figures.
Oh, center. Oh, okay.
Why?
Wisdom.
We to take care of everything we do for foremost. We lead the lay people. Right? And even now, if you visit in most of the Buddhist country, you see the monks and nuns run the temples, not lay people. It's still rare. Even in Vietnam, it's still rare. Yes, sir. Why? Why?
I actually had a question, but I think that it's because of their enlightenment.
No. Even this country, in our Vietnamese Buddhist communities around the state, there's many temples. No, right? If they want to become Buddhist, they have to make the vows to follow Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Buddha, right? Dhamma doesn't mean the Buddha teaching, right? Sangha is the monastic communities. See that? They are one of the what they call three refuges.
The three refuges, yeah.
Plus, the only thing I want to mention is that, and in the West, especially even at the Spirit Rock Center or the Zen Center, most of the time run by the lay people too. They call themselves Sangha. Of course, this is a Sangha. Does mean a community of people who come together to practice Buddha teachings. But in the East, Sangha is more geared toward the monastics, that's monks and nuns. Plus, when we wear the robe, when we make the vows to become Buddhists, monks and nuns, we take the goal is what they call liberation. Liberation. Yeah, of course, the teacher. Yeah, but why?
What's the question?
Why are the monks and nuns the central focus of the temples? That's the same question.
For 1,000 years, why? Instead of lay people. Now they're in the West, right? You see, they run by themselves, right? But in the East, it's quite different. Even now, it's still rare.
It's like an anchor, isn't it, to keep everybody together?
Yes, and but why?
Path.
Why is that?
Teachings of the Buddha.
Yeah, of course, here.
Because you're the monk, like you're.
know, I'm a monk, yes, but when I
Say
walk on the street, no one care, right? Who care, right? But I want to mention, I want to emphasize so that you can understand, even in Theravada, Mahayana, and even in Tibetan tradition too, yes. You see that? Buddha,
Nature.
Dharma, and Sangha. I think I touched this point before too, right? Buddha, right?